Hey, it's time for TV Skywriter. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to TV Skywriter. I'm Pat Murray. I publish the Durham Skywriter, that's Durham, North Carolina's online community paper. And with TV Skywriter, I try to introduce you to cool people I think you should know. Half of my guests are from in town, the other half are from out of town. And in this case, my guest is from way out of town. Let's talk, let's talk with Mr. Alex Riesenkampff from GetVokl. How are you, Alex?
I'm pretty good. Thank you for having me on, Patricia.
So this must be a little weird for you, 5 p.m. on a Sunday in Colorado, but I'm very happy that you had time to share with us today.
No, not weird at all.
Okay.
It's always great to speak with you, and if we can do that on the platform that we're building, all the better.
Excellent. Now, I've been using GetVokl. I wish I could remember when I joined. I don't remember. It's been a while, several months, and I've been totally enjoying it. But I thought what I would do is to have you come on and explain what GetVokl's all about, because I have to say I've been interviewing people for years. And I've been doing online shows since maybe 2013, starting with, believe it or not, Google Plus Hangouts. I've been on Blab, Fire Talk, who knows what else. And it seems that for my guests, young and old, live streaming is still a mystery. Even in 2019, I'm usually the first person to introduce my guests to live streaming. So why don't you tell us what live streaming is, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, that's a huge question, and I'll do my best to unpack that.
Okay.
And by no means would I say I'm more an expert than others, but I'll just give you my perspective on live streaming.
Okay.
So the question that you ask, why is essentially streaming not bigger than it is right now, is one that I've asked myself and the team at GetVokl have asked ourselves. And the answer is actually live streaming is pretty big, but in certain areas, in certain domains. And when we say live streaming, let's just make sure that we're talking about live streaming via some kind of an internet digital enabled platform that is available to regular users that don't have some super expensive infrastructure in place, right? So let's separate live streaming in that sense from, TV networks that have live operations and all of that. So what are the areas in which live streaming already has a significant amount of traction? I really see two areas where live streaming is very successful. One is gaming, and the platform that leads the pack when it comes to live streaming and gaming is Twitch, which is owned by Amazon. So there are hundreds of thousands of gamers that play games and stream them live via Twitch to people that will watch others playing games, and then the gamer will be on camera as well and can comment the gameplay and those kind of things. So that is very successful. And then the other area in which live streaming is very successful is what you could call adult content. And I'll go less into detail in explaining what exactly that means. But it's interesting to see that those are the two areas where live streaming is really established.
I'm shocked that you said that second one, because you know what I thought you were going to say? I thought you were going to say college sports, because because, like, for example, North Carolina Central University, Kyle Serba is the I don't know if the word is the information director for the athletic department. He trains students to show the games online. He shows them with the cameras and the play-by-play and all that sort of thing. And NCCU is not the largest school in the country, so I would naturally assume that everybody's doing it if NCCU is doing it, and they do it quite well, by the way. So I thought college sports would be you know?
I would say there are a lot of other areas where live streaming is still pretty new,
Mm-hmm.
and college sports is definitely one of those.
Okay.
Way more folks watch college sports over regular television networks than they would via something that you could refer to as live streaming. So anyway, back to that. There are
Yeah.
two areas in which live streaming, I would say, is established and very successful in, whether you think that's good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's interesting that these two areas, adult and gaming, always have been pioneers when it comes to new internet user experiences. It's always been that way.
Okay.
And so I think that is an indicator that live streaming in terms of college sports or podcasting or community engagement, and those are all the things that we're going after with GetVokl, are still very new, right? Okay. Even YouTube's Live and Facebook Live and all of those formats haven't really caught on as much as some folks may have thought so. So
which shocks me.
It is shocking, but at the same time, it is normal, I feel, because this is one thing. This is kind of a conundrum or a cognitive dissonance or whatever you want to call it, that we always overestimate how much change will happen within the next year or two, but we always underestimate the change that will happen over a course of maybe 5 or 10 years. Okay. So I feel that live streaming, when it comes to more mainstream application like podcasting or shows like we're doing it right now that are maybe also more applicable and more relevant to a larger audience than those two areas in which it's already established. Here we're really at the beginning, and I feel like it has a lot to do with what the format is. Okay. And figuring out a format that works and makes it enticing and appealing enough for other areas to really latch on and get onto the bandwagon.
You know what I think the challenge is, and why I wanted to interview you in the first place, is that not enough people have had it explained to them. Because once people come on my show, for example, they're very often it takes a while for me to convince them to come on the show. Not always, but sometimes. But then once they understand what's happening and they realize it's not that much scarier than being on radio, because I did start out with radio, and they realize, ooh, I could use this. Because I've actually had people, after being my guest, to try their hand at live streaming. And just to further explain live streaming can be done, depending on the platform, with a simple laptop, smartphone. You don't need all kinds of equipment. I would say you probably need a good internet connection, but you really don't need that much. In fact, when Periscope first came on board, it was kind of a fad for a while. I was one of the early users, and a lot of people were selling all of these courses, how to do Periscope, how to do live streaming, and everybody would run out and get the same, what do you call those, the smartphone holders, Archon Mount. That guy, he was very, very instrumental in selling product on Periscope. Everybody thought you had to have, special kinds of tripods and microphones, and you really don't. You just need a connection to the internet and a face, a smartphone, laptop, desktop, depending on the platform. And it's really all it takes. And it takes probably a lot of guts. A lot of people are really afraid to come on camera. And I'm like, well, people see
that's a good point.
Every day.
That's a good point. So it doesn't, as you said, it doesn't take much, right? Mm-hmm. You can do it with your smartphone. You can do it with one of these here. Mm-hmm. Also on GetVokl, you can do mobile broadcasts. The question is, why will folks want to do it? And I think that is the harder question to answer. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, technically anyone can do it, more or less. but it needs to have a value to folks so that they want to engage with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is the question that's slightly tougher to answer.
Well, let's narrow this down. Actually, I wanted to mention some of the early, for people, who have maybe watched early live streaming without realizing what it was. Ustream was real popular. If you were a young teen in the early 2000s or mid 2000s, that was the way that a lot of pop groups, they would go on tour, and then they'd go into their hotel room and do a live Ustream with their fans. So that was the first time I saw live streaming, was in, I think, like the mid 2000s. Blab was another one. Blab introduced a lot of us to live streaming. Meerkat came right before Periscope. But let's talk about GetVokl, because I am still intrigued, because you guys are still building GetVokl. And it started out different. I was not here at the beginning, but somebody, I think it was probably Bobby, told me that GetVokl was different when you first started the platform. What was your goal, and what was the setup back then?
So, I need to talk about why GetVokl was started in the first place.
Good.
And I'll be as brief as possible, because I can get kind of long-winded with that answer. But we realized that social media is not delivering on its promise. It's not all that social, in fact. If you go to Facebook or Twitter, the interactions are mostly asynchronous, and they are anonymous, and that leads to a lot of superficiality and a lot of hostility. And so if you think about social media, it's kind of sad when a lot of folks would characterize it as superficial, a contest for who looks better, who can make their life look more interesting, or a shouting match, as it often is, especially when it comes to political topics on Twitter.
Okay.
And that has a lot to do with the interaction, it being asynchronous, in many cases text-based, and anonymous as well. So it's easy for people to not feel accountable to what they're going to say. So the genesis of GetVokl was, if I see you, and if I get feedback from you immediately, as if we were in the same place, face to face, then we have a totally different social contract in our conversation. And so initially GetVokl was all about that idea, and making conversation more equitable, and making conversations more bridge building, and maybe, even in the political domain, have more productive discourse.
Okay.
And so we had a format that would give all 4 participants an equal amount of speaking time, and when you would say something, there would be a timer that counted down, and you could donate some of your excess time to someone else if you felt like it. And so that was the first inception.
You had a timer? Okay.
You had a timer. You had a topic, and you had a timer, and so that everyone had the same amount of time to contribute to the conversation.
Okay.
Very rigid, didn't work.
Okay.
The idea, I think, to have a more equitable conversation, especially because, some people are more soft-spoken and have more to contribute than loudmouths like myself, in many cases, I think still is not bad, but it's too rigid, right? It's too far away from how people have conversations.
Yeah, it's not real conversation. Yeah.
Exactly. So we tested that out. It was an experiment, and wanted to see whether that could work, but then moved over to something that is much more like it is today, that is more open. And then since we launched something that is similar to what we have today, we have concentrated on what will make live experiences interesting, what will make them compelling for the audience to watch live in the first place and even interact with. And so we feel that it's all about creators and what they have to share, and the community that they can spark around that. And so that's where we're going with it.
Very nice. And let's mention some of the people you work with, because I don't even know. Are you the main boss person, or?
I started it, yes, but
Okay.
I wouldn't consider myself the main boss person.
Okay. Well, there's Gisela, and there's another Alex, and then
Yeah, there's
there's
another Alex, and there was another, even another Alexander, and then there's the technical person who is Lokesh, and then
Lokesh.
there's a couple of developers. So we're a pretty small team still.
Mhm. So, have you achieved your goal? Is GetVokl what you eventually dreamed of?
So it's at the very beginning. It's still very much in its infancy, I would say.
I won't
So,
I won't
so
ask you to give away any secrets, but it has grown a lot. And I did notice that there were a lot of ex-blabbers who came on board, and some demanded and some requested some changes. It seems that they've been implemented, as far as I know, for the better, in my opinion. I don't know. What do you think?
so something like this, especially coming back to what you initially said, it's so new.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just say, okay, this is what we're going to build, and then expect folks to start using it. You need to listen to the community and implement things based on what the feedback is. But you, at the same time, you need to always ask yourself, why will folks want to use this, and how could this get more adoption, and all those kind of things. So it's balancing between the feedback that you get from users and what you think based on other indicators is going to make this successful. So yeah, we have implemented a lot of the things that have been requested, but we also have strong hypotheses that there's a certain creator type for which this can be especially useful. And those are creators, most generally speaking, that have followings and that talk about stuff that this following is very passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the folks that we feel can activate the community that congregates around the topic that they're dealing with on our platform. Mm-hmm. And you said, have we reached our goal? We're very much still at the early stages, so I wouldn't say that we have reached our goal, but we have reached some goals of making this platform a lot more appealing and a lot more enticing, and we're getting closer to that vision, I would say.
I really like it. Now let's name a few ways that people can use GetVokl, because again, sometimes you have to point things out to appeal to people's interests and to jog their imaginations. So I can imagine, for example, I know of nonprofit agencies that, like, representatives will drive from Durham to Chapel Hill, or they'll make some long distance call to Asheville, and maybe they're trying to, it's raining and they hate driving all the way to Raleigh or whatever. And I'm like, you have 4 squares. So if you're a nonprofit, whatever, you can have, Orange County, Wake County, Durham County, and Charlotte or whatever, all meeting together. You don't have to broadcast every time, right? Now, wait a minute. If it's not broadcast and it's not recorded, right?
Exactly.
Okay, but so you can still have a meeting.
So you can do a bunch of different things. You can choose to have a private, not recorded meeting on here, and in that sense, it would be similar to a platform like Zoom, just free. Oh. You could have public, unrecorded events, or you could have public, recorded events like the one that we have right now. And by recorded, we mean there will exist a recording of the event, but also you can stream it out to any location such as Facebook or Twitter or YouTube simultaneously. So yeah, there are a lot of different use cases. And if you are thinking about nonprofit organizations, probably one of the best ones I could imagine is to have meetings with the supporters of that nonprofit, right? Mm-hmm. So not to use it as a way to have a virtual meeting between the leadership or something, but to have the leadership, for example, invite the supporters to participate and to ask questions and those kind of things. So in a way,
Okay.
these four squares that we have here are almost like a virtual stage.
Mm-hmm.
And then the room, though, is like an auditorium that can have an unlimited amount of members that can raise their hand and ask questions and even come on stage if they're invited to.
Exactly, because somebody could say, well, let me hop off and let Johnny come on and ask his question or whatever.
Exactly.
So I think that's a really wonderful platform and a really clever way to have meetings. Now, I want to further have you explain. Everybody has his or her own channel, so to speak, and they can do what I'm doing now, which is a public broadcast. But then within your channel, you have a private room. I haven't tried that yet. Is that what you mean? Like a private room that you cannot broadcast from? It's your own hangout, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so you don't broadcast from there. And I did want to point out that yeah, you could have all kinds of people watching and typing in questions. They could hop on stage, so to speak, but they could also ask questions from the side. And I think it's really wonderful. I can imagine authors talking about their book, holding up their books and talking about their books, fielding questions.
It's already happened. There's already been authors on GetVokl to use it that way.
Awesome. There's really, what I'd really like to see now. In the early days of YouNow, not a lot, but some media outlets like the Washington Post, I can't remember, there was a newspaper from Israel, I can't remember which one, but a few of the big media outlets, newspapers, had shows on YouNow. And what was really cool, like for example, the Washington Post had their young interns, because YouNow is, a lot of people think it's for kids. It is for young people. But what was really cool was that YouNow had young people, interns, having the kids on YouNow ask them questions about journalism. But unfortunately, all of these endeavors, they're all gone from YouNow. I think a lot of the media outlets, I saw them all hop on Periscope at the same time and YouNow, and then they said, oh, nothing's happening here, and they all gave up. I'd like to see them try again. And I'd like to see them try it on GetVokl, because GetVokl is a lot better, higher, much, not putting down YouNow, but the quality is much higher on GetVokl. Plus, it's much more sophisticated, and you can, well, again, YouNow's for kids, so it's not, I mean, it's cool, but I think YouNow is better for adults. I mean, GetVokl is better for adults, much more sophisticated. I'd like to see the media outlets try again.
We would too. We think that that making something like this successful has a lot to do with who comes on board and who do you cater to in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of the large players, whether they're media outlets or whoever, if they don't see a certain amount of success quickly enough,
Mm-hmm.
they will abandon a platform.
That's exactly what they've done, but I think that was premature.
It is premature, but folks don't have the patience, especially if there are other formats like making clickbaity videos on YouTube or whatever, mm-hmm. that are going to get hundreds and thousands, if not millions of views and make them money quickly. They'll ask themselves, well, why am I going to take the long route to build an audience on a mm-hmm. platform like GetVokl? So mm-hmm. the creators that we're addressing are more of the independent type, okay. that are interested in engaging with whatever size community they already have. So those are podcasters, those are journalists like yourself, folks that have more or less an independent voice, mm-hmm. and would be happy to engage with, even if it's only 10 or 20 folks in their events. And so we feel that it is more a grassroots approach that we want to take there to convince those hundreds of thousands of independent content creators to use GetVokl, and then have the big outlets follow once it becomes more established with the smaller independent creators.
Okay.
That's
And
at least how we think about it.
yeah. If you don't mind, could you tell us how to get started on GetVokl? I think it's changed since I actually started. So what's the procedure now for starting a show and setting up your own, getting your own setup on GetVokl?
So the good thing is I don't need to explain it. We have just last week implemented some technology that will explain it step by step whilst you're on the platform. So all you need
Nice.
to go is log on to getvokl.com using either your Facebook account or your phone number or whatever. And then there will be a step-by-step guide that will walk you through the steps. And then you can either choose to only watch stuff, and then it will explain what the things are that you can do in case you feel that you're more here to watch and interact. Or if you feel like you're a creator yourself, then we will walk you through the steps that will help you get started with that.
Super nice. And I have one more question for you. Was it last night or the night before? I think it was last night. Someone, I met this crew of people trying to broadcast on GetVokl from it was a haunted hotel or something. I don't think they had the bandwidth. It didn't quite work out. But it intrigued me because usually when people are doing on location type live streaming, they're using something like Periscope. Like, for example, when I heard about that Notre Dame was on fire, I immediately went to Periscope to watch. So, is GetVokl set up to be used in such a way where someone can actually, I'm used to seeing just people sitting around the house or their office talking. Can it be used in that way where you're at a location where something's happening and you're showing it on GetVokl? I've never seen it used like that.
It can be. So just I think 2 months ago or something, we implemented the ability to broadcast from your mobile phone as well.
Nice.
So the answer to that is yes.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it will require a decent internet connection, which is somewhat of a challenge still.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can be. And we're sort of seeing some folks start using it in that way. And so, yeah.
See, that would be really exciting because with Periscope, and I do love Periscope, it's just you. You can't have, I would love, for example, to see some journalist or somebody out in the field showing us something and then having people hopping on board talking about it, saying, oh, well, I saw, this guy was saying this over here and this guy over here is saying that, just throwing, people like to throw rumors around
So
and try to guess what's happening.
What you're just suggesting is one idea for a show that we might help produce.
Ooh.
Where when there are breaking events or certain big events that are planned, we would have some folks that can sort of call in and give their perspective from wherever they are on location of what's going on. And then you would have one facilitator, such as yourself, maybe, that would coordinate the different folks that call in and give their view of what's going on at that particular event. And so in that sense, it would be a more multi-perspective way of doing what's happening on Periscope right now. Because on Periscope, you would have individual streams.
Right.
Here, you could have one show that consolidates all of these different perspectives into one.
So is something like that starting up now really soon, or that's still in the planning stages? That sounds
That's in the planning stages, but in the advanced planning stages.
okay. Well, keep me posted on that because that sounds really intriguing.
Yes.
Like one way it could be used, like for example, I like to go to Duke Gardens. It's pretty world famous, I guess. It's a gorgeous garden, and it has many different segments. Like an Asiatic garden and natural garden. Natural North Carolina area type plantings, and then there's bamboo, and there's a pond with giant lily pads. Anyway, can you imagine someone giving a tour do gardens, and then having flower enthusiasts from different botanical gardens explaining, this is for people who really like flowers, but you know what I mean. Someone explaining what we're looking at, because the tour guide, which would be me, I don't necessarily have all the knowledge. I'm just like, ooh, pretty flowers. But it would be nice to have someone help me out.
It's
That would be fun.
possible. It's possible.
I'm just giving you an example.
Someone needs to do it. It's for sure possible.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate Alex you coming on the show, and I also want to throw shout outs again to Gisela. The other Alex's last name, is it Duarte?
Yes.
Okay. And Lokesh, I forget his last name. Lokesh. What's his last name?
His name is Lokesh.
Lokesh. Okay, like Madonna. Lokesh. Okay.
Exactly.
So thank you again, and thanks for GetVokl, because I think once people really start catching on to what live streaming is all about, I'd love to see high school students use this. High school journalists trying their hand. When you go to the our journalism subreddit, you see a lot of young aspiring journalists trying to figure out how to learn how to interview people, how to do this, how to write a story, how to do that. I would love to see them here on GetVokl, trying out their journalism chops, so to speak. I'd love to see that. So
would we. So would we.
Okay, well, let's talk some more on that.
Yeah, let's talk more about that. That's definitely an interesting one.
Because
so yeah, thank you.
There's a gentleman here in Durham who is a mentor, and he works with Hillside High School and also a youth-run newspaper here in Durham. And I can imagine them coming on and with their parents' permission, of course, doing a show on GetVokl. I'm going to call him tomorrow and see if we can set that up, because I think
if you need any help from us, let us know.
Thanks again, Alex. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Patricia.
Absolutely. Okay, folks, so you know what to do. If you're thinking of, in any remote way, of having your own show or talking about something that's on your mind, talking about your latest book, having your kids to interview their grandparents or whatever, that would be cool. Intergenerational stuff. Check out GetVokl. Is GetVokl.com. You can always contact me at Durham Skywriter, and I'll try to help you out in getting it set up and getting over the fear. A lot of times people need their hands held. I've done that too, where I would go on a person's first show to sort of lead them and sort of hold their hand and show them that it's not that difficult. So with that, have a beautiful evening. Thanks again, Alex.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I'll see you folks. I'll see you next time. In fact, tomorrow I'll be restarting Bull City Notes tomorrow morning for people who live in Durham, North Carolina on Facebook Live. And I will see you guys really soon. Ciao for now.